Hey guys, it's Msi Logo back with another video for you. It's my first proper review since I've been back, out of hospital, although I am very much recovering, in case you're wondering why I've got a swollen face. I have had a haircut to try and make me look less like a tramp and hacked some of my beard off because I was just starting to look like a hobo. But anyway, today we're here to talk and review the Z87 MPOWER MAX. Now, I'm still not seeing a lot of retailers with this in the UK, and when I googled earlier, I did get a price at Dabs for 200 quid. So we're going to be basing the review on a £200 price tag. That's 20 quid more than the Z87 Overclock gigabyte board that we did. But there are a lot of, this one I can't help but say it does feel like there's a lot more quality bits going on. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the rig, although it is running behind me. I will bring you in and have a look at the motherboard and talk you around some of the stuff on the motherboard. And then our conclusion, well, we'll look at the BIOS as well. Our conclusion on this is kind of all wrapped up with the performance testing. But one thing I will say right at the very beginning, please go and have a look. I can never remember what side I need to point at the main review link, because you can go and see all the graphs there, and then you can see it in the bulk of the other Z87 boards that we've done recently. And I would say you really do need to be looking at those graphs as well as watching this review. It will certainly help if you're looking to make this purchase or considering this as a purchase. It will make things a lot clearer for you. And I'm still, not keen on putting graphs in videos. I'm very much a verbal person and prefer, to chat to you about it. And we're all perfectly able nowadays to, multi-screen, so we can have a video over the top and then have graphs, and you can see the two. Well, that's how my head works anyway. But I'm going to be quiet, going to bring you in for a look at the board, the test rig, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll just move on. So yeah, I just need to be quiet. Let's just get on with it. Okay then peeps, so moving on to have a look at the board, and I'll talk you around some of the features and everything as well. Now I've taken the GPU out just so that it can give us better access, and obviously the colours for this, it's just a test bench, remember. Yeah, okay, I've got individually braided cables and stuff, but this wasn't put together to try and complement this yellow at all. It's just the bits that we use in our, in our day-to-day system, and our day-to-day system is white and blue. So yeah, so the colours are a little bit mixed up, but if you did want to kind of try and match this up within your own system, MSI obviously have the lightning cards, which are black and yellow as well, so that's well worth a look. It's obviously an easy match, they're designed to go together. But when you move on beyond that, you've also got a couple of Kingston options as well. This is the new Navi HyperX solid state drive, and they've got Navi HyperX memory as well. It is black PCB with yellow heat sinks, and this is black and yellow solid state. This is based on the 3K SSD. These are available, you can get 2x 4 gigabytes, so 8 gigabyte kits, and 2x 8 gigabytes, so 16 gigabyte kits. And these are available in 120 meg and 240 meg. And they're pretty, I think that the solid state drive for the 240, I'm pretty sure that's around the £100 mark, and you can get this 8 gigabyte kit for about 50 quid. Again, so it's just something you can look at should you want. Now, one thing I will say is looking at this from the start is they've purposely kept around the CPU socket area quite clear, and the heatsink is beefy but flat, and that's so you can run a big heatsink if you want, a massive air heatsink should you wish, but also to keep things quite simple and easy to cool. Now the heatsink on this, like I said, it is quite beefy, but there's the stuff underneath is pretty beefy as well. But what we'll do as well, because there's a lot of notes that MSI have sent with this, so I'm going to try and work my way through it. They've essentially said that they've designed this based on 4 principles. Professional overclockers feedback had to be integrated, so we've got things like the fast boot button, the LCD poster there. The overclock genie button down here, if you press that, it only got my system up to 4 gigahertz. The volts were okay, but it was, to be fair, it was only like 100 megahertz increase. It's one of the ones that with older CPUs, because it's a CPU problem, not a board problem, with older CPUs you probably would have got like 4.2 or something. But I think if you're spending the money to buy an overclocking board like this, and this isn't the basic one, this is the middle of the range one, and they're coming in at around 200 to 220 quid, I personally think if you are spending the money on this, you should be manually overclocking or just leave it as stock. I really wouldn't, you know, bother with these. But also down the bottom, while we're down here talking about it, we've got an overclock switch. We've got a power and reset switch. Something I did find quite strange was the plus and minus buttons only increases the base clock. There's no extra button for you to switch between going to base clock to multiplier. The Gigabyte Z87 overclock, their one you could do multiplier and the base clock, and I think that just being able to do base clock is a little bit limited, especially where, you know, most of the bumps that you're really going to want to be doing are the multiplier. This is probably what I would consider to be better for memory tuning rather than anything else, but you'd still have to be pretty clued up about the tie-ins and everything like that before you wanted to start fiddling with it. Most important thing, down here it says fast B1. I don't know why it's not called go to BIOS like it was on the GD65 gaming, but essentially if the rig's off, but it's, and I mean powered off, but the power's still, you know, switched on to the PSU and everything, you can press this button, and then when you press the power button, or the power button on your rig, however you decide to do it, it will go instantly into the BIOS. If you're in the operating system and you press this, then what you have to do is go to your Windows button, select restart, and it will restart and go straight to the BIOS again. So you're not going to spend forever smashing delete to try and get into the BIOS and everything. And to be fair, this on here and on the GD65 gaming, for me, that for someone that's in and out of the BIOS all the time, tweaking, messing around, being able to do this, bugger off, go for a wee, come back, and it's in the BIOS and not have to sit there and babysit it to press the delete button all the time, is epic. Right, so they want the other MSI overclocking boards. We've said about integrated overclockers feedback. They want to continue MSI's leading position in power efficiency and stability. And to be fair, a lot of the MSI boards are very stable, and I mean, like the old MPOWER board, the Z77 MPOWER board, it was brilliant for the money. Anyway, overclock certified, built with Lightning DNA, enhanced components, enhanced power, enhanced thermal design, cleanest extreme PCB, optimized overclocking BIOS, overclock essentials, which is essentially these buttons down here, and like the go to BIOS button, the poster, all the stuff that I've mentioned previously, and digital all power PWM. So we've covered a lot of that. Other parts, they're hidden underneath here, but they want me to talk to you about high CCAP, and that's a very small super efficient capacitor. It allows up to 93% efficiency. Then they've got dark cap, and that's apparently a stable, and I'm going to look, see that I am actually reading off the notes because there's so much on this board, and they've got super ferrite chokes, military class essentials, and they say the core of the military class 4 is based on the essentials, which increases your stability in the worst conditions. And essentially it's just to make it incredibly stable, but also longevity, because if you're not, you know, raping the arse out of your motherboard all the time, all of these components will, they're designed to last essentially. Now, the PCB on this is quite interesting because they've actually allowed more layers. The new design has got 50% more layers, which allows them the traces with the copper, rather than having to keep things really minimal or thin because of space, restrictions. By adding more layers in, they've been able to beef up these traces so that you can deliver much more cleaner, stable power. So there's lots of things going on under the hood that, you know, at first glance you might not be aware of. Now they want to say about the thermal design and everything as well, but essentially the thermal design is they tried to keep everything quite minimal, but you've got massive heat sinks, but also, you know, relatively good airflow and everything as well. And there is a heat pipe that flows round from underneath this chip and goes round, and it's all to try and make things all, like I said, extra stable, because we obviously know keeping things cool is going to help. And then, yeah, so anyway, so another thing, and this is something that I talk to you about a lot, is if you're going to be running SLI, and people always say to me, how am I meant to count the slots? Now, and this is another reason why I took the graphics card out. If you've got a graphics card in the first slot, so I'm just going to fit this now. Right, there we go. Right, so if you've got a graphics card in that slot and then you have another graphics card in this slot, essentially what you've got, most graphics cards, a twin slot anyway, gives you a slot between the cards, so you've got room to breathe. If you had to put your second card in there, they'd be sandwiched right up, and a lot of motherboards are laid out like that. So that extra slot will make all the difference. Obviously, if you're running a massive card, a bit like the DCU2 some Asus, which can be a, you know, triple slot, then those two are going to be smashed up together anyway. So it does have a much better layout for cards. Really, the reason why they've really not gone for the next slot down is if you only had a normal ATX motherboard and you had a triple slot card, it'd then hang off the bottom and you might not be able to you know, attach it all properly. So this is relatively good, but one thing to keep in mind is that it's only wired 8 times on this second slot. There's no PLX or anything in there to give you extra PCI Express lanes. So you've got 16 times on the first one, which is kind of normal, but if you drop a card into the second slot, they will both run at 8. That's just normal Z87 chipset stuff though, so there's no need to you know, flap, whine, or you know, get worried about any of that. It's kind of normal. The other thing is the audio boost. Now they have got a headphone amplifier built in, but obviously the PCB is separated off to keep things all nice and clear and everything as well. And the built-in headphone amplifier allows you to use studio grade headgear and get the most amazing sound quality out of your gaming PC. So that's another thing to kind of think of. And what I will do is I'm just going to move the old Riggaroo around, because what I'm going to do is just drop you down so that you can have a quick look. I know I should stop the camera and show you this kind of stuff, but it's just to have a look in the back. Now we've got a clear CMOS button here. We've got 2 USB 3s up here, and then PS2, and then we've got 2 USB 3s, 2 USB 3s, gigabit Ethernet, which is done with a killer like a lot of them are now, full size DisplayPort, HDMI, digital optical audio, 2 more USB 3s, and then a HDMI again. Now what I will say is this and this USB 3 are the Intel USB 3s. These two USB 3s you need to install another driver for, and this is done off of a separate add-on chipset, and that's just because they've been, you know, using the PCI Express lanes for other stuff. You do get 2 you do get 2 8-pin power ports on the top for if you're running, you know, ridiculous extreme stuff. But I've got to admit, peeps, for what we were doing on this, adding a second 8-pin at the top made no difference to how far we could push our overclock or anything. The board as it was more than capable of maxing our CPU out, and by that I mean within, you know, not raping its arse kind of levels. It was just, we got to we know our CPU can do 4.8, 4.9, we got to 4.9, it did as expected. So yeah, sorry I hit the mic then. The only other thing to kind of bring up, which I've just remembered I forgot, is the line for the separate audio thing. It does light up yellow. The little trace is yellow, but the LEDs underneath the board are white, and it does give. I've got to admit, I do prefer white LEDs over any other colour LEDs, really, for when you're lighting your case. But it does give a nice kind of little kind of subtle back glow, is what I will say. And the MSI logo here, that's very much the same. It's yellow kind of transparent plastic, but the LED underneath is white. So yeah, we've covered pretty much all those bits now. It's really now time for us to start talking about the BIOS, which I'll go in and I will show you the BIOS, and then we can talk about a few benchmarks and then move on to a conclusion. And it's been a fair old whack of time already, so I do need to get my derriere in gear. Right then, peeps, so what we're going to do is do the BIOS. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the fast boot button, like I said, which is one press, just done that, and then what I'm going to do is press the power button. Now you can see I'm not hitting any buttons, and there we are, it's gone straight into BIOS, and it is brilliant. I love it. Now the BIOS, the thing is, right, and I do need to kind of explain this. When you are doing reviews, or you spend a lot of time in your BIOS yourself, when you come onto a motherboard that does things slightly differently, it can feel slightly confusing. This, to me, I found a lot of the settings that I wanted, I was having to go and look for, and I'll show you a couple now. Now, to clear the BIOS, and by that I mean restore the, the defaults. Normally, it's somewhere like along the top or along the bottom, it will say, for argument's sake, press F5 to load optimized defaults. There's nothing like that around this front page, and to get the overclock defaults, what you have to do is go into save and exit, and you've got restore defaults there. So that's how you do it on this board, and that, do you know what I mean? There's a couple of clicks, and normally, like I said, it's just an F button that you press, and you can do it there like that. Another one, CPU settings. Generally, to turn things off, like the EIST and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I picked that because I'm sure we've got it here. You can turn the EIST and a turbo boost off on this front page, but to get to the rest of the settings, you have to go right to the bottom, and this is if I'm remembering it rightly. CPU features, and then all the rest of the settings are there. Now, generally, what you would find with other boards is you get to the bottom of your CPU settings before you get to memory, and it would say you'd have a CPU advanced or something thing. You'd click into it and it would take you into the other menu. With this one, I know it's just in a different place, it is still there. Once you get used to it and once you know where it is, it's quite fine, but the first few times that you're in the BIOS, I found it frustrating. I was just, oh, where's this? Do you know what I mean? And it was just things like coming down to turn the thermal monitor off and turn C1E off, just little things like that. So like I said, I was having to look around for stuff. As far as the rest of the BIOS and stuff's concerned, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's there if you want to fiddle and tweak with it. It will do all the things that you want. Yeah, it's just training, and yeah, it's it's not really. And if you want to change, go from one to another, you can use the mouse, and the mouse works pretty much spot on straight out the box. I've not had to adjust any settings or anything. Well, there we go. The other thing that I really personally use, obviously I used MFlash because I updated the BIOS to the very latest one on the MSI website. The other one is Overclock Profile, so you can save your settings in there should you want. I would say to people, I mean, this one you can't change the name, which is a bit annoying. I like being able to put it at from, it's like 4.9 stable save, 4.6 lowest volt save, stuff like that. What I normally save mine as. The other thing that's quite good is the hardware monitor, and you can actually go in here and set fan speeds and monitor stuff should you wish, and change fan controls and stuff. And this for the BIOS is actually pretty good should you want to use it, and you can, like I said, you can adjust things how you would want to. It's quite nice. I mean, when it comes to fan speeds with an overclocking board, I generally I wouldn't be setting stuff up, but many of you would do. I'm very much an old school boy where I try not to use the onboard fan headers unless I'm trying for a ridiculously tidy build or something. It's very, very rarely I ever use them. If it's my own personal one, I generally set my fan speeds up so that they run the same all the time. But obviously there are those of you out there that wouldn't want to do that. So there are options there should you want to use them. So as far as the BIOS is concerned, it's very capable. It's not as in-depth as like the Maximus 6 Extreme or something along those lines. But it's got everything that you're going to need. You just may find that you have to look about for some of the settings. But if you're used to overclocking and you know what you need to change, then you'll be able to find your way around it. Like I said, you just may need to go and look for it. But anyway, right. So what we've done now, we've had a look at the board itself. We've had a look at the BIOS. It's now time to have a bit of a chit chat about benchmarks and stuff and the actual usage, and then we'll move on to a conclusion. Right then peeps, so we're going to talk on to performance, our overclocking, and then our thoughts on the benchmarks and stuff as well. But one thing I will say is click on the link to go to the main OC3D review, where you can see all of the graphs and everything. And I would say when you watch these videos, it is good to go and have a look at the, you know, the graphs and stuff as well. I personally, I've still not found a way that I'm happy with to put graphs here. And obviously, let's face it, I'm a businessman. I do need to send you to my website, not just watch the videos. But anyway, so right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the performance and everything, and all kind of like wrap it all up in the conclusion. So the conclusion is going to have all the other bits, because otherwise I'm going to be saying things twice. So quite surprisingly, and we have debated about this, but we've decided to give this the silver award. But it's a very, very close silver award to the gold. Now, and this is where it does get confusing, because there's parts of me that does want to give it the gold award, but we ended up going for the silver over price more than anything else. But it's not, essentially, when we talk about performance, we got 4.9 out of it, which was our CPU with the board, which is, you know, what we would have expected, to be fair. It was the voltages that we were getting with the with our overclock were the same as we were getting on other boards. The load line calibration on this works really well. It was going from 1.26 to 1.58, but I hadn't turned it right the way up. It was just a little bit of droop that I left in there because I didn't want to turn the load line calibration up anymore. To be fair, I got it to a point where I knew it was stable and I was quite happy with it. And that tiny little bit of droop wasn't necessarily making any performance differences. It wasn't making it unstable, so I just left it. I was happy with it. I didn't want to spend too much time on it. Now, so with this, as far as benchmarks, where it goes in our graph tables, it doesn't top our graph tables at all. And short of the Maxima 6 Extreme, I mean, it's the second most expensive board we've tested. We're still finding that the GD65 Gaming and the M5 are the two that, you know, are fairly well placed in our tables. So this kind of is fighting out with its own kind of sibling, the GD65 Gaming, in a lot of the benchmarks, which, to be fair, it's another MSI board. That's all, you know, it's kind of how we would expect it to be. So really, and this is the only real thing that we've kind of really marked it down for. Yes, it is more expensive, but it does bring a lot more things to the table. So it depends which way you want to look at it. Do you want to mark it down for its price, or do you want to mark it up because it brings a lot more kind of features on board? And the thing is this is one of the things that we spoke about before with the Maxima 6 Extreme, and the thing that Linus had covered is that the cheaper boards do the job very well. You'll get, if you spent, you know, 150, 160 quid on the GD65 Gaming, you get nigh on exactly the same kind of benchmark scores for 99% of you as you will this. If you're looking at getting the MPOWER MAX, it's really about, if you want to push things that little bit further with your overclocking, it's about, it probably will technically, if you were to really push things, which we haven't, be more stable and last longer. But these aren't really things that we can really test without risking our CPU. Because one of the things that we've kind of decided to do, especially with this, especially where, you know, the boards have been so, you know, great across the board and across the price range as well, is that we've decided that we wanted to keep our volts down to a level where temperatures are acceptable. Because if we were to start raging, you know, to really max these boards out, we would have to get another CPU, because we wouldn't want to risk killing this one. We do know of Haswells that have been really harshly overclocked, not even lasting an hour or two before they decide that they want to go to silicon heaven. And so we've decided to keep our overclocks and stuff moderate. And to be fair, and I do mean this wholeheartedly as well, if you got a Haswell CPU that can do the clocks that we can, and at the volts that we have, you've won the silicon lottery. So most of you out there are not even going to be getting clocks like this anyway. Around the 4.6 mark seems to be an average kind of nice point at decent volts. I know people that are getting 4.6 at 1.3 volts. We're getting 4.9 at 1.26. And these are always the things. I don't like handing all my other settings out and everything as well, but it's just to kind of clarify to you that there's a massive range with these CPUs of the volts that they require, and even the limits of the CPU within them. I've been trying for a long time to get 100% stable out of this chip, and I personally don't think it's in there. I think we've got a chip that does a bloody good clock at nice low volts, and that's its calling card. It's not one of these ones that can clock higher but just needs loads more volts. So back to the point of the board itself. Really with this, if you're looking at this, you've got a cheaper MPOWER and a more expensive MPOWER. I would probably say that a lot of people are going to kind of go in at this £200 mark for this board and grab this one. It's got a really good layout. A lot of the features there are good. I don't like the megahertz button, and it's just that. I do think if it's going to be an overclocking board, that you would have needed at least a switch to be able to use it for multiplier as well. But it's well laid out. It looks, compared to the cheaper MPOWER board, I would say this looks like, the other one looks thin, and kind of you can see that there's they've had to save money, and the way things are laid out and stuff, you can see it slightly cheaper. This looks kind of more quality. It looks chunky. It does just look like it's more expensive. The layout is good. It's all nice and clean. Everything is where you'd want it. Like I said, it just makes it look like it's a higher quality board. And to be fair, for the extra kind of 40-50 quid, I don't think that's too bad of a problem there. With what I would say is, and I've said this in other videos before, when you're trying to choose your motherboards, the differences between them for, if you were to move your kit from board to board to board to board and overclocking, and the results that you're going to get and the frames per second that you're going to get from your games, the differences is going to be very, very minor, just a few percent. So what I've been suggesting is you buy the board that A, you like the look of the best, but B, another way to look at it is, really, does it fit what you want? Is the layout going to work for you? Do you need an extra slot on the PCI Express because you're going to run 2 cards? Do you want your memory to go in a certain way? Do you want a specific colour? It's what memory you're going to be running, what cooler are you going to be running? It really does just come down to, as far as I'm concerned, really aesthetics. But then the other thing that you need to think about is what comes in the box. Do you need to be paying for all the extra bits in the box? With something like the Maxima 6 Extreme, I think a lot of the price there is stuff that most people are going to get for 5 minutes and then not really use again. This hasn't really got stuff like that in there. But things like warranty and, like I said, the stuff that does get included in the package as well. So it's not necessarily that you need to be thinking about performance so much, it's the fact that you need to be thinking about, all of the other kind of little things, because like I've said, all the boards pretty much perform the same. It does make things, for a reviewer's point of view, when we start talking about, things are very similar and you have to start looking at tiny details like layout and stuff, it does make our life pretty hard, because essentially all those little kind of different aspects of the board are things that you have to decide on. We can't really do that. All we can tell you is give you all the information and explain why that extra PCI Express slot will make a lot of difference to some people, and why the fact that the SATA cables are 90-degree turn round rather than pointing straight out will make a lot of difference to some people. So we're more kind of like giving you information to try and educate you onto the way that you should be buying it, rather than saying that this board is 30% better than that board, so this one is well worth the price. We kind of have to teach you to decide whether you need to be spending more, £160 or £200. So things, you may think it would make things easier, but for someone that actually cares about making or helping you get the right product, it's actually made my life specifically a lot harder. One thing I will say is, for me, the MPOWER Max is the sweet spot between the two. Does carry that little bit more of a price, but I think for the chunky and the qualityness of it, and the fact that everything on it's kind of like souped up, it would make me feel slightly more comfortable about running a high overclock for a long period of time. But, and this is the but, I think the main point of this board for a lot of you guys out there, I do think that the majority of you are going to end up buying this because it's black and yellow. And that'll, that's where it's going to come in. So if you're thinking about that, he leans out of shot. If you're thinking about that, you're obviously going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to buy a Lightning card as well. I would expect a lot of you to end up running, something like a Lightning in this, because you've already chosen a premium motherboard. You're going to be then looking for a premium graphics card. The 770 Lightning is out. 778E Lightning, I can tell you, is coming. I can also tell you I've got one coming. But then when you start thinking about the other things, like the Corsair fans, you can obviously, if you use those, you can pull the rings off, you can paint those yellow, tie it all in with your rig real nice. But you've also got the Kingston stuff that I showed you before, and that's the Navi limited edition stuff. This stuff isn't going to be around forever. So if you are thinking about buying this board and you want this stuff, then you are going to have to get hold of it quick. Only limitation with this stuff is the memory is only 1600 megahertz. I do wish they'd made that 2400 megahertz, but I think it was just more of a cheap price budget thing than you know, having a whole range of yellow memory. Slightly disappointing, but it really depends whether you're going to want speed or you just want yellow memory sticks. I think personally they're the best looking yellow memory sticks that are out there as well. I don't like those Vixia things. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of the LEDs in them. I think that's just a bit too much bling, especially with the yellow. But anyway, so we decided really to go silver, to kind of say, and it's a shiny silver, it's almost a gold. If it was £180 like the Gigabyte board was, we probably would have swung it gold, but it was just the price, and it was a very, very difficult decision to make, to be fair. But one of the things, because we chatted about it in the office, and we were like, the boards are so good now across the range. Are you going to give it a gold award because of all these features, like the extra layer of the PCBs and all that kind of stuff, that we can't necessarily test? And it's one of those ones where we were like, well, they are nice features. It has got the better caps, it has got the military class 4, it has got this, it has got that. So there are a lot of quality components on there which are going to bump the price up. But the bit that it comes down to is when we tested it, you know, all of those kind of quality components, they didn't really make enough of a difference in our benchmarks. The board came out kind of, you know, around the middle of the table with all the benchmarks. So adding all those quality components on didn't really seem to make any, you know, amazing difference at this level. If you were to start pushing things and really raising things, then they may make the difference between the board lasting for a year and 2 years, for argument's sake. But that's what warranty's there for anyway. So it is a good board. If you want the what's the word I'm looking for? If you want the kind of peace of mind that, you know, you've got epic components on there and stuff like that, then you're not going to worry about paying those extra few quid. But it was just that little price thing that we were kind of umming and ahhing about. So we went with silver, but you know, we were still in two minds about going gold. So I can hear my phone ringing. If this is one of them bloody private bloody... Hello? Hello mate, you've just interrupted me in a video. Can I phone you back in 2 minutes? Okay mate, bye. I was expecting that to be one of those, hello, have you had your PPI claim sorted out? And I was going to play it to you down the phone. I was actually going to put it on speaker, but it's someone I need to talk to. So anyway, yeah, we decided just right at the last minute to swing it as silver, but it's a very shiny silver. And one thing I will say, and I can't be more clear about this, if you want those quality components and you do want a board that technically has been built, you know, for overclocking, all those different layers, you know that you're going to get better tracers and stuff in there, then I would say for those of you out there, it would be, you know, very well matched. If you're not that fussed about it and you just want to buy black and yellow, then I would still say buy this one. But if you're not that fussed about it and you're just looking for an MSI board, my favourite board that they've got out at the moment still is that GD65 Gaming, and for the price, it's fucking awesome. So there's your info. I'm going to leave you guys to go off and deal with it. I'm not slating the board at all. I love it. Hopefully I've given you enough information to make your own kind of educated choice on these parts. Generally when we give silver awards and stuff, I end up getting grief from the manufacturer, so we can't give everything gold. So hopefully I've explained enough to kind of explain why we've done this, and it's really down to you guys to decide what's best and most important for you. Oh, bloody hell. Anyway, right, I'm going to love you and leave you. Still a bit swollen, my jaw's starting to hurt, and yes, I have had a haircut. But anyway, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.